All right. So, good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, to some of you, it's good afternoon. For some, it might be even good evening. I have no idea from which parts in the world you're coming from, but looking at the names, it can be really the whole world. So, well, welcome to my session. My name is Tomasz Poszytek. I'm coming from Warsaw in Poland. I am Business Applications MVP. I am as well Microsoft certified trainer, although so far I'm providing only my own personal certified trainings, and I've never had opportunity to really deliver a full MCT training. Nevertheless, I am running a company where we are building Power Platform solutions and SharePoint solutions as well. And as well, Dynamics, yeah, like anything that stands behind the business applications is in our agenda or is in our scope. I personally focus on automation, on workflows, on Power Automate cloud flows, desktop flows, so the RPAs, business flows, and so on and so on. And well, needless to say, I am a Power Platform enthusiast because I'm not only working in that area, but as well, I'm really contributing, and I love to contribute in this area. And this work simply just gives me lots of joy. In my free time, I do like to well, downhill, ride downhill on my MTB bike, and as well, I'm the traveler and the photographer. And if you'd like to stay in contact with me, there are multiple ways. I'm present on almost every social media platform, apart from those where you have to really work with the images. So even though I'm a photographer, I feel myself as a photographer. I'm not doing Instagram or anything like that. So anyhow, there is one URL for all these social media links. This is the aka.ms/Poszytek. So if you'd like to connect with me, follow me on YouTube or Twitter or elsewhere, just feel free to do that. Okay, so today I'll be talking about infusion of AI in automation, in Power Automate, in authoring actually the Power Automate flows, and basically in this side of Power Platform that is focused on automation. But first things first, the automation, the AI that we have in Power Platform used to be like a regular build models on Azure AI. Right now, we have like Azure OpenAI, we have the GPT. So what is GPT? What is this well, generative pre-trained transformer? Well, basically, that's a neural network that is pre-trained as it stands. So its outcomes are not really, no, I lost the word. Gosh. It's like you can't be really sure what will be generated as the outcome, even though that you pre-train the model. So you put terabytes or petabytes of data as the input, you try to train this model. Still, the outcome may be very different depending on what the context of this conversation of this generation is. And so when you have, I mean, maybe I'll just unveil all these points. So when you have the model, you have the input layer, which is quite obvious because it's where the data comes in, and then there is the output layer. So this is what the outcome is. So that what we expect. But then there are multiple hidden layers where the transformer works, and the transformer actually is not only trying to understand what we wrote and what we want, but it's as well trying to get some patterns in what we wrote to, and find the patterns in what we wrote to what it already has somewhere trained in this semantic neural network, actually. So then, depending on the context we put, it can, again, start the generation in a different part of this neural network, so the outcomes can differ. And so the creation of the model is quite easy. So first you need to collect data. Remember to collect a very high quality data, so that remove all the bias, remove all this shit, so that if shit doesn't comes in, then shit doesn't come out. Also, then the data has to be well, put in a structured format. And on that data, you can build the model, which is then going to be trained and fine-tuned so that you check every time if the outcomes of this training are at least somewhere near to your expectations, so that this evaluation, fine-tuning, and training, evaluating, and this just runs in a loop. And finally, you can deploy the model so that it can be used by us, for example, in Azure OpenAI. And so I've mentioned that those transformers which are working in the behind in this neural network in between, they are trying to understand what we write. So the idea that lets the AI to understand what we actually wrote is called the tokenization, so that whatever sentence, whatever input we write, is being exploded into smaller chunks called tokens. And then these tokens are being encoded as vectors in a multi-dimensional space. It really depends on how many of these dimensions are. It depends actually on the model that was built, and then each dimension is actually responsible for a different feature of these vectors. Like if you have a vector, if you have a token that stands behind a man, and then you create a vector out of man, like a human being, then the dimensions can be that is a human being, that it's a male, that it's a whatever masculine, and there can be hundreds of these different dimensions that you can actually use to parameterize that vector. And this how you're putting that vector, that token in a context of that space is called the vectorization. And later, when the model is working, it's trying to understand what we wrote based on our input. So it's taking all these tokens that it already has processed, and based on those tokens and their similarity to other vectors that it already has, or the patterns it knows, it is trying to create a next token. So it's trying to create the outcome. And this is as well the I'm here trying to as well visualize how the vectorization, or sometimes called as well as the text embeddings, work, so that as mentioned, each token that is that the GPT or any other generative model is trying to understand, it is put in this multidimensional space, and then it can use different approaches. So you can try to find things which are close to each other, so that it may know that, okay, cat is close to kitten. So if you're asking me write a sentence about a small cat, you may think about a kitten, not about a dog or houses. And as well can try and use the pattern, so that if it knows that the distance between the man to woman is X, and between king and queen is as well X, then possibly man and king may be somehow close to each other. And also each token or each vector, as mentioned, it has like really multiple dimensions. So it doesn't really need to be just a 3D space. This is just an example how we can put different tokens in the 3D space. But then on the right, you have the visualization of vectors which are in very multidimensional space. And so you can see, it took me a while to see these similarities. But the point is, when you look at these vectors, when you look at these colors, then if you see some patterns that are similar, for example, here, that woman, girl, and queen usually have these dimensions more to minus, while man, boy, and king have these dimensions more to plus. So this like minus 0.2 plus 0.2. Then these can then tell the transformer, hey, man and boy and king might be somehow correlated. So I can use these words in a sentence because they may mean something similar. And this is how we are trying to visualize it, to understand how this generation, how the tokenization and vectorization works on that transformer side. And so in the end, when speaking about the transformer and well, generally the GPT, so first GPT uses the text to tokenize it, to split it into small chunks. The funny fact is that when you saw that sentence on the slide with tokenization, right here, just to show you what once again. It's like in English, most of the tokens are almost full words. And there are not so many tokens in a large text identified. While in Polish, because Polish has, well, it's quite difficult. It has declination. It has different meanings for the same words. Tokens are exploded down to even single letters, so that generation of content in Polish is much longer than in English. So that is just well, to let you know. So after the text is tokenizated, then those tokens are encoded into vectors, and then bot is trying to understand what we actually wrote. So it's trying to find similar vectors in the space, as well to find these patterns like the distance between vectors, their aim, and their length, so that depends on those vectors. It's trying to find similar things. And after it was able to find something that works in the context, it's generating the output token. Then sometimes, for example, for text generation, it's as well validating the output. So it's running the grammar check, spell check, and so on, so that it really knows that what was generated is valid, is working. And if that is okay, then the output is generated to us. All right, so in Power Platform, sorry, we have AI. I mean, we had AI, I think years ago. So the AI Builder is with us for many years already. But well, previously the AI Builder was mainly focused on really like pre-built models trained on specific data, which outputs were very deterministic. So imagine that you had an AI model that was focused on OCR. So it was trained with different layouts of invoices. And then whenever you put another invoice, you were quite able to tell what will be the outputs. While with the generative pre-trained transformers, the output is not really deterministic. So it can be really different every time. Also, there is a parameter in GPT that is called the temperature, so that the higher the temperature you put or is set, the more unexpected the results are going to be. And it's like a value between, I think, 0 and 1, so like close to 0, then the model is going to act more like a deterministic AI, so that every time it will generate nearly the same outputs. But if you put it to 1, it will just generate you some really random and unpredictable outputs. Yeah. So anyhow, right now we have the Azure OpenAI, which is the GPT in Azure, and we can really benefit from having it both in Power Automate, in Power Automate for Desktop, but as well in AI Builder. All right. So as Sharon wrote, if you have any questions to that, simply ask. And yeah, I have like 30 minutes, 35, 25. Oh, okay, then I'll just try to stay in time. Anyhow, let's jump over to AI Builder, and that will be the first step for the demos. So in general, as we remember, the AI Builder is like a set of different AI services built into Power Platform. It was called, and it's still being called, as this democratization of AI, so that we don't really need to know how to build a semantic network or neural network, how to program AI, how to create it from scratch. We just have a model that we can use, or we can create our own model based on the pre-trained model, so that we can fuel it with our own invoice layouts and then create our own model. But the point is, that was all with us for a very long time. And right now we as well have the GPT. So I'll just jump over to demos, which is here. We had the AI Builder. Right now, the AI Builder is called the AI Hub. And what is new is the AI prompts. So that's a new addition to what you can find in both Power Automate Portal and Power Apps Portal. So once you navigate here, you can use either the pre-trained prompts, or you can create your own prompt. Now, the prompt is a very, very important thing in the GPT, because the prompt actually puts the GPT in a specific context. And then by changing the prompt, by like trying to tell the GPT that right now you're not an IT specialist, but whatever, a vet, its answers can be really, really different. And so in this AI prompts area, you can choose from one of those existing prompts, or you can create your own. And so what I want to do now is I want to create my own custom prompt that that will be used in a flow that will require an approval to travel requests that will be placed by developers in a company. So right now, I want to put GPT in a context that it is an AI director or AI manager, IT manager, and that it has a team of IT developers who sometimes need to travel to customers' locations. And before they do, they have to raise a new travel request in which they have to justify why they actually want to make this travel. And so I want to have their justification summarized and actually put in a short action points, so that I don't really need to go through their poem if they write one. I just want a very short bullet points. So what I want to do is I want to write this long prompt. So this prompt now tells GPT, hey, imagine you're this IT manager and you have these subordinates who are traveling to on-site locations, like nearly the same thing I just told you. So in here, I'm trying to put GPT in this context that right now it is not acting as just a random, whatever person or being, but it's trying to be an IT manager who should have like an IT knowledge and should be able to use that resources that were used to train it, which are correlated with the IT world. So that is a prompt. And now I have to put this dynamic value that I want to dynamically pass into the GPT. Let's call this justification. And now I can test my prompt. So I have here like a very, very long justification. So let's test it. Right, so that is what GPT was able to generate. I'm quite okay with that. So it tried to summarize what was the reason for the travel and the most important action points. Okay, so I'll now save it. And with that, I'm like ready to go to Power Automate. So the model now is being saved. I mean, the prompt is being saved. And I'll switch back to the presentation, because right now I want to jump over to Power Automate and tell you how GPT works in Power Automate. Wow, right. So in the modern designer, you can find GPT in various places. So first, you can find it as a copilot that helps you both to build or to author the whole flow, but as well to assist you as you're authoring the maybe in other words, it first assists you or helps you to design the general layout, the canvas of the flow, and then it assists you inside the flow with some single operations. Now, my feeling here is that in comparison to other copilots that we have already in Power Platform, like the Power Apps or Dataverse, this one is very cranky. Like it really doesn't work the way I expect it to work. Like it's much faster to me actually to build things manually than to let the Copilot do it for me. I don't really know how this works in behind the scenes, but to me, it's simply trying to find, again, in this vector space, in this multidimensional space, actions or designs to which again during the training process were vectorized to tokens that are present in the input I am providing. So for example, when I'm typing I need to have an email sent every time, whatever, an item on SharePoint is raised, then it's trying to find vectors standing behind layouts of flows, which do have like a trigger as a SharePoint, and maybe they do have as well an action called send an email and so on. That's my idea, but I never had a chance to look how this works behind the scenes. And having that said, I'll now jump over back to my Power Automate. Yeah, that was here, or the Power Automate portal. So my prompt is generated. Now I have to build a flow. This is a list that I want to use. So there's a list called travel requests. And here, well, my employees will just place requests whenever they will need to travel to an on-site location. I don't find myself as a very good Power Automate developer. So I want to ask Copilot to assist me. Now I have different places where I can use Copilot. The first one is on the home page. That's this beautiful, colorful area that encourages you to automate something. So this is the one place. The other places are on the create. So here you can find that option that is called describe it to design it. And it as well uses the same GPT as the one on the home page. So now I'll just start it. Right. So there is one question, if this is possible to change temperature for GPT in Power Automate. No. I feel it is set to some really low value because its creativity is not very high. But we are not able to anyhow manipulate with how this model works. We just can try and then insert different prompts and then expect that we will have something that, well, works for us. Okay, so I have a very large prompt, long prompt that I want to insert here. And this prompt, by this prompt, I would like to ask GPT that it helps me to build a workflow that is triggered every time there is a SharePoint item created. And I wanted to add a condition that if the total cost of the travel is about like 1,000, it will send this request to approval. Otherwise, let's say that the request can be automatically approved. And as well, I want the flow to send notification with the outcomes to requesters. And as well, I want the flow to update SharePoint item related to this travel request with the respective outcome. So that is a very long prompt, and I have tested it. And the reason why I'm saying that the temperature here is quite low is that every time I'm sending this prompt to Copilot, I'm getting the same results. I'm not saying they are wrong. They're surprisingly correct. So as I was playing around Copilot in Power Automate, the results it was generating were way behind to what I was expecting. Also, a difficulty here is that if us as users of Copilot are not really, maybe not to say fluent, but we don't have experience in Power Automate, it may often be difficult for us to validate if what we see here is actually okay, if this is what we want. We can only trust Copilot that it might be okay and that it should work. Also, for a very complex scenarios, it will obviously not work. So it won't generate you a multi-stage approval process that routes through 3 stages and that runs endlessly. So if the timeout appears on approval, then it restarts and so on. So no, none of those things this Copilot is able to do. However, generation of the flow is quite okay for those simple scenarios. And then if you're not really okay with what was generated, you can as well ask it to show you a different suggestion. But from my experience so far, every other suggestion than the first one is just awkward and is absolutely not correlated with what is expected. So I'll just go back to the first one and generate it. And so right now I'm a designer. I have my flow generated, but I obviously need to work with it so that it's completed. So first I need to provide information about the site that I want to use. Well, I could possibly use and try to pass this information as well in a trigger or in that prompt. However, I'm quite scared that it would not work. Yep, so here I need to as well use approval type. So the first to respond. Let's make it very simple. Of course, I could as well try and ask ChatGPT, here, that in the prompt to write to find me a manager of that requester. But I'm okay with that. So then the condition, body status, no, the body status is not a correct outcome. So you have to as well check every time what the Copilot generating, because its outcomes are usually far away from what can actually work in Power Automate. So this is not really going to work. Here, yeah, that should work. Trigger outputs, yep, approved, rejected. But here automatically approved. Yeah, that's fine. So the only thing I would need to do as well is to update these actions here. So again, list, it will be throw requests, and I need to browse here title. And what I want is to use the approved field, and I want to say yes. Well, I could copy paste this action so that in the second branch, I would not really need to click it from scratch. By the way, how do you like this new designer? Have you already got used to it? I can just write in the chat as I'm clicking. I'll copy it here and paste it here. Okay. So what I want to do next is I want to use this Copilot in here, and I want to ask it to actually create me a calculation that is going to add the travel cost to hotel cost and will generate in the end the calculation that will add these two values together so that I can use it in the condition in the beginning, right? So this is the expression I want to use. The prompt I want to use. And so, well, it was working before, so I hope it will work here as well, that this compose will be really inserted between the condition. Yeah, that worked. But check it out. It may work, but it won't actually, because this expression is missing some important things. So first, it's missing here the brackets, and here the brackets, and the rest may work. So let's try and simply update these two things here. And now I'll try and save it, but I just need to as well make this condition here so that the compose is greater than 1000. Okay. Let's see if the flow can be saved. And if not, what issues are found. Sorry. Possibly its name is just too long. Hopefully that's the only issue that we can face with this flow in here right now. Other than assisting you in generation of the actions or explaining the steps how to generate an expression or write an expression, Copilot here you can ask it to, for example, tell me what this flow is doing. so that it's going through the flow and it's trying to summarize what actually is the purpose of the flow. There are as well some pre-trained prompts so that you can ask it to generate an action, you can ask it to replace an action or explain the action, or just ask an action, a question. So this is how it works. Now, also what I want to do is before the approval is started here, I want to use that AI Builder action that I will use the prompt. So this is this create text with GPT using prompt. And I want to use my own prompt, so the summarize. And justification is going to be provided as the reason for travel. And then in the approval, I want to as well have these outputs of the justification present. Okay, so now I can save it, and I'll just quickly navigate here. Let's say, well, John Researcher, I'll put the same justification as you saw, because I'm not really creative. I would need to ask ChatGPT to generate it for me. Yep, and let's say it's going to be from yesterday until whatever, some airline, let's say 500, and then 600, and yep, that's it. So let's save it. And yeah, let's see if this is going to work actually. It should, but you never know. Oh. Anyhow, while this is being triggered, and hopefully it will get triggered, the other thing that you have to remember about these actions which are generating prompts is that it's not being shown in here. So this designer doesn't show it. But if I switch back to the classical designer, you will notice that there is a warning actually in the flow checker that is encouraging me to as well create an additional action after the GPT is used. There should be. Maybe I have changed it. Anyways, there used to be like a message that after I'm using the GPT prompt, I should as well insert a so-called approval. There is one dedicated approval that is called approved text. Start and wait for the approval of a text. And that one is purely dedicated to outputs generated by the GPT, so that this text is then going to be sent to approver, and approver is able to rephrase the text or to amend it, so that later you can work on a text which was verified by a human being. Now, I don't really know why this flow is not running. Oh, it ran, but it failed. Ouch. Possibly the calculation is wrong. Oh. All right, sorry. Yeah, they're assigned to. It doesn't contain valid users in my organization, and that's awkward. Just a quick fix, and that's weird. Sorry. We don't have time. There we go. So I'll just trigger it once again with that outcome, with that previous run. What 40 minutes is too short for the session, you know. And what I just wanted to show you is that the GPT obviously generated a prompt, and then there is approval assigned to me, hopefully already, and that I'm actually able to navigate either to approvals or to teams, and I have all this information here, right? So then you can work with that. And lastly, I just wanted to go briefly to Power Automate for Desktop, because this is where we can as well really benefit from running GPT. So in Power Automate for Desktop, the Copilot is not really as generative as you can find it in Power Automate, because you can rather use it as a Q&A, so it can suggest you how you can achieve a specific goal. However, what is funny is that its responses cannot be copied. So like you can copy your question from this chat, but you cannot copy the response from ChatGPT. That's odd from the Copilot. All right, so with that, let me jump back quickly. This time, I unfortunately have to run with a pre-created demo, so I won't show it from scratch that how it was created. The point is, let's assume that you have, well, something like a data that you're gathering from external application or from the website, which comes in a very unstructured way. So I'll run it right now, and we'll show you what we have here. So in this application, I have this very unstructured table. I mean, it looks structured, but when it's downloaded to application, to a Power Automate for Desktop, it's really unstructured. And then you can possibly create a loops with some conditions, with some regular expression to parse it and to make it valid. However, it's much faster to ask GPT. I'll show you in a second what is the prompt that I put in the GPT. But also what I wanted to show you is how fast it's actually generated. So my idea was to get this unstructured data. Oops, sorry, there shouldn't be an issue, but there is actually. But anyhow, to take this unstructured data, yeah, and then convert it to JSON, but unfortunately it returned not only the JSON but as well some text. This is why it wasn't actually converted successfully. But anyways, I asked it to take this data and convert it into a JSON where IDs are the objects, and well, it worked. It worked well in the first place. Right now, it worked very messy. So sorry, I'm not very satisfied with how it worked. But the first time I tried it, it was working pretty well. Also, what you can do is you can, for example, you can find GPT in a scripted actions, like you can have the PowerShell script, and here you can generate a code with the Copilot. So again, I wanted to write a script that converts CSV into a JSON format. And so it will generate me a valid script that I can simply use. And I don't really need to be a cool developer that knows PowerShell, JSON, Python, and so on. I can just try and use Copilot. But all the time that you're using Copilot, you need to use an action that allows a user, human being, to validate the results. Like if I disable this action here, it will disallow me to save my flow, because it tells me that the create text with GPT doesn't have a content display, blah, blah, so that no one is able actually to verify what are the results. And I just showed you that in my case, it was actually valid, so that I should have someone who was able to verify it. So if I try and run it again, I need to enable it. This time, hopefully, it could work much better. And also, I have Copilot in the top right corner of Power Automate Designer. Power Automate Desktop Designer. So you can find it here, like in the top right corner. Oh, you see, now it worked pretty well. So the JSON generator is very good, and as well the custom object that I'm having here, the data table, is very useful. So now I can very easily convert it into data table and then use it in other places of my Power Automate desktop flow. Also, there is RPS of the Copilot here in the main landing page of the Power Automate for Desktop. But again, you can only ask it questions, and you cannot really engage it to generation of the whole process or anything like that. Okay, so with that, I would like to have a very brief summary because I'm running out of time. So remember, when you're using GPT in Power Automate, to really verify what it is doing. So like, what is the outcome? So never let or never trust that the results are going to be correct, and I mean correct all the time. Even in my situation, in my scenario, the prompt I used in the first place generated different results second time. So the flow failed because the results were different to what I was expecting. So always there should be a person in the middle that actually verifies if the GPT generated something which is really valid and it's working. As a bonus, I just wanted to tell you that you are as well able to join or trigger Power Automate Cloud Flows straight from the ChatGPT. So you can just write prompts in ChatGPT, and that will trigger your Cloud Flows. And also there is an independent publisher connector that allows you to control ChatGPT. So you can create new prompts, you can train it, you can insert data, but that only works for the Pro Plus users. All right, stay with me. I know I'm a minute after, but I just wanted to summarize very quickly. So the GPT is quite okay because it really helps us to speed up the creation process and authoring. Our creativity is as well enhanced with GPT. So it allows you to really create things faster. But on the other hand, don't forget to always to not trust the GPT, what it's generating, because it may regenerate things which have bias inside that can be misinforming you because we never know what data was used for the training. So always verify what GPT is generating and never trust it into as on 100% level that it will be correct. Wow. All right. Oh, as mentioned, there is this high dependency on the training data. So I wanted to thank you very much for spending the last 40 minutes with me. And I hope that this session puts some more light on how you use Copilot and GPT models in your automations and where you can find them and how you can use them. So I would like to really ask you to rate my session because it was actually the first time I delivered it. So it's a pretty new session to me. And I'm really curious about your feelings and how you find it. So once again, thank you very much. And I wish you pleasant rest of the conference.